Alright guys, Revolve Wrestler here, and it has been a very, very long time since I've done a video. I actually think the last time I did a video was around July of last year when that came out. I remember doing a video on that. So yeah, I'm back. I don't know if this is going to be a long-term thing, I imagine not. But I thought that today I would give you a review of Wrestlemania Night 1, because I watched the show last night. I stayed up for it. I also stayed up for the previous 2 nights of TakeOver on Wednesday and Thursday. So I've had a very long week. Fortunately, I am off work this week on break, so that's good to know. But I decided after last night's show and some thinking today that I would like to catalogue and chronicle my kind of thoughts on the show, because it's quite a happy show. Most people are very happy with the show, and I am surprisingly happier than I thought I would be going in. This year's WrestleMania didn't excite me a lot, very similar to last year. I think last year came at a perfect time. It came at a time when everyone was low. Everyone was low, everyone was sad. We were just starting in this pandemic, and Mania came around, and it had these jokey matches like the Boneyard match, and it had a few things which just perked everybody up. And I said last year that I believed the first night would be better than the second. And this year, I've only seen the first night, obviously. But I have that same idea. I believe that the first night of WrestleMania will be better. And I'm going to tell you why as I go through my review of the 7-match card. First thing I'd like to talk about, 2-hour pre-shows with no matches. Absurd. And the second thing, the delay. So the weather delay that WWE had in Florida, the rain, which essentially pushed the show back around 35 minutes, which wasn't too bad in hindsight. It's far worse if you're from any country other than America. So like me, for someone who, the show starts here for me at like 12 o'clock, then got pushed back by another half an hour. So very tired, very long evening. But luckily the show in the end was really, without the weather delay, it would have been about 3 hours. So it was probably shorter than a normal WrestleMania, but you do have to keep in mind that there are 2 nights of WrestleMania, so you can't just say, oh, this was shorter than a normal Mania. In total, it isn't shorter than a normal Mania. But no, the weather delay I thought was handled very well. They essentially aired some unscripted promos. And do you know what? These were good unscripted promos. I cannot believe the company decided, it's almost ironic, that they were pushed into a corner, they had nothing to do, and they just gave mic time to a few guys, Kevin Owens, Braun Strowman, people like that, and specifically Kevin Owens. And these promos were great, for the most part. Shane McMahon did one, and that wasn't brilliant, but Kevin Owens specifically was very good. He even cut a great promo on Logan Paul, so something I'm very much looking forward to tonight. But yeah, I just wanted to get into that first. I think it's been quite an issue, and especially it was an issue last night before the show, so just wanted to mention that first. The first match on the show, WWE Championship match. Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre. I would not have had this match kick off the show. And I especially would not have had it kick off the show knowing the way it ends. Now, I like both men. I think Drew McIntyre's had a wonderful year. Since winning the belt at last year's Mania from Lesnar, I think he's been the company's Iron Man. He's main evented most pay-per-views. He's had, I would argue, more 4-star matches in my eyes than anyone on the main roster, because he's given that sort of push to have those matches. He lost the belt to Orton unnecessarily. He then lost the belt to Miz unnecessarily. And the end of this matchup almost makes that loss to the Miz even more unnecessary, and I'll get into that in a minute. Bobby Lashley, obviously I haven't had a chance to talk about this title reign or the Hurt Lock or the cash into the Miz or anything like that, really. Bobby Lashley, it's great that he finally got a world title. He is 44, and I technically have seen him as a world champion in TNA a few times, actually. I think he's held the TNA or the Impact world title. I think he's held it like 4 times. And at one point, he held every title in TNA, so he had just a collectathon day. But yeah, I'm a fan of both these guys. More McIntyre so than Lashley, I'll be transparent. But this match here, which I had quite high expectations for, it under-delivered to me a little bit. I thought it was still pretty good. I thought that there was good back and forth action. Drew did a tope con hero on the outside to MVP and Lashley at one point. They kind of caught him, but he still landed around his back. At one point, Drew did a plethora of future shock DDTs, and Lashley kicked out, and it was all about him building towards that Claymore. There was no body part really being worked over or anything in this matchup. Lashley did several massive spine busters, but in the end, Drew was going for the Claymore. Lashley don't hit the spear either, oddly, which was essentially it was the two men building towards their biggest moves, the Claymore or the Hurt Lock, and Drew went for the Claymore. MVP distracted him for a very brief second. It was so brief that MVP was not on the apron. You wouldn't have even known that MVP distracted Drew. He didn't stand on the apron. He didn't make a move, in all honesty. He distracted Drew. Drew went for the Claymore and missed. He ended up in the corner. Lashley gave him a big right hand in the corner and locked him in the Hurt Lock. Drew tried to do the Austin Brett finish to escape it. Lashley rolled through, kept him in the Hurt Lock, got him down to the mat, and Drew passed out. So Bobby Lashley retained the WWE Championship in the opening match of WrestleMania, the first time they have had a live crowd, a 10,000 crowd, I think it was, 20,000, whatever, in the building. They had a heel go over in the opening match in front of fans. This baffled me for a number of reasons, especially because Drew has been the Iron Man, as said, of the company, and I felt like this was really his chance to... And maybe this didn't have to open the show. You know, it could have been in the middle of the card. You could have happily had Cesaro and Seth Rollins here. It would have fit much better, and that finish would have played into the crowd reaction, and it may have even got an even bigger reaction than it actually did. But no, the crowd weren't really into this match either, unfortunately, which I found really odd. I thought that the crowd would be white hot for this whole show. They had peaks and troughs. They were quite hot for the main event, but they were soaked, and it wasn't a long show, but 3 hours is still a long time to consistently cheer. So, in the end, this match is 3.5 stars. I did find Lashley winning in the opening match in front of crowd for the first time in over a year baffling, but 3.5 stars. I thought it was pretty good. I think that Lashley here, I don't know why they needed the interference. Essentially, the reason I took points or star ratings off this was the interference in the end seemed kind of silly. A lot of the spots kind of blended together. I don't necessarily think this match felt WrestleMania worthy. And that's essentially because Bobby Lashley has only been built as a champion for 3 months, not even that. So, yeah, I think that if Lashley had, and this is why I think the Miz cash-in was pointless, if Lashley had just beaten Drew at the Chamber, in the Chamber, you could have even had him beat him in the Chamber. And then, you know, you could have told the story of, oh, well, he beat him in the Chamber after Drew come in first, or something like that. And Lashley came in last. You could tell that story, very simple story. And then Lashley comes here to the pay-per-view and he just beats him properly. And I think that would have been much better. I think people would have enjoyed it more. I think people would have had as many questions about the finish. I think I'm too pedantic sometimes as a wrestling fan, but this was, to me, a bit of a glaring booking error. But regardless, 3.5 stars. It was a pretty good match. It did slightly fall below my expectations because I've seen these guys have very good matches elsewhere, like in Impact, actually over the world title. So, yeah, it was very good, though. 3.5 stars. Second match on the show was not a good match. This was the Women's Tag Team Turmoil match that included Lana and Naomi, Billie Kay and Carmella, the Riot Squad, Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, and Tamina and Natalia. First thing I noticed when I saw the graphic with all the 10 women on it, there are too many blondes and they all feel the same and look the same. The actual Divas division has very little character outside of the big players, the Bianca Belairs, the Sasha Banks, the Baileys, Asuka. They're the big four, really. Natalia and Tamina don't really have much of a character. Neither do any of the random blonde women they've got, who are mostly quite talented. So, yeah, this match wasn't very good. The first teams in were Billie Kay and Carmella. I think Billie Kay is by far the worst woman in this matchup. As they took on, Lana and Naomi. This was pretty brief. It was like 2 minutes. And then Billie Kay pinned Lana with an assist from Carmella. That was rubbish. Just not very good from all women. The second match may have been worse, which was Billie Kay and Carmella against... Oh, God. The Riot Squad? Yeah, sorry. Liv Morgan and... Sorry, it's been a long day. I'm very tired. Yeah, but yeah, it was the Riot Squad, Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott. They pinned Billie Kay with like a code breaker and then a senton off the top. I thought that move looked silly because I felt like Ruby Riott would be crushing Liv Morgan if she was underneath, but whatever. That was pretty rubbish. And then Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan pinned and beat Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose. Mandy Rose tripped on the way down to the ring, which wasn't funny at the time, because obviously it was slippery. Again, they came out dressed the same, and so I almost couldn't tell the difference which one was who. They were both blonde, they're both quite small. So yeah, very odd. But yeah, this one wasn't very good either. Dana Brooke got pinned by Ruby Riott, I think, and the announcer announced it wrong and then had to re-announce it. It was odd. It was really odd and it was really bad. It was really like second rate, basically. It was like something you'd see on like an indie show. And then the final part was the best part, but it wasn't much better. Tamina and Natalya, they beat the Riot Squad, who had endured a few rounds, and Natalya hit the heart attack on Liv Morgan, I'm going to guess. And then Natalya went for the sharpshooter, but she pointed at Tamina. She said go up top. She tagged Tamina. Tamina hit the Superfly Splash. And they won. This was pretty bad. It went like 15 minutes, and I wished it was shorter. So, yeah, this is like 1.5 stars. This is pretty bad. And I don't want to talk about it anymore. I've already spent too much time on it as it is. Third match on the show, Cesaro and Seth Rollins. This is one I want to talk about. I thought this was very, very good. Very, very good. And as far as a match in 10 minutes or 11 minutes pretty much is what it got, this was great. It wasn't as good as the 10 minutes that Pete Dunne and Kushida got on the first night of TakeOver, which I will try and review those shows perhaps this week. I've got the time off, so I may as well. But I might need to watch them again. It's been a few days. As I said, Mania was last night, and I'm already forgetting things. There's certain things I won't forget about this match and the main event, but we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, I'll try and review those shows. I'll try and review Night 2 of WrestleMania, obviously, tomorrow. But no, this match wasn't as good as the match Kushida and Pete Dunne had, which was slightly shorter, to be honest. But it was very good. Rollins and Cesaro tried to pack everything into this match, basically. And the story is frankly silly. The story is about Cesaro wanting to swing Rollins more than 22 times. And basically, he did it quite early on. He tried the swing, but he only did like 8 rotations or 9 rotations or whatever. And he couldn't do it. And so they had a back and forth match, and Rollins did this. He did a springboard knee. He did a sick elbow to the back of the head that was almost like Chris Hero. It was brutal. Cesaro countered a curb stomp into a European uppercut, like the Swiss Death, I think it's called, what was called in PWG or Ring of Honor or wherever, which didn't look as smooth as Orton's, and I imagine it was probably harder. It's because you've got to stand straight up as opposed to Orton, who would have to like bend straight away. But yeah, that was still pretty cool. Rollins did a corkscrew frog splash, or as we called it in my house, the corkscrew frog hop. But yeah, in the end, basically, Cesaro hit a neutralizer for a near fall. Rollins hit a pedigree for a near fall too. I forgot to mention that. He hasn't hit the pedigree in ages. Like, I can't even remember the last time he did a pedigree. He probably beat Triple H with it, and that was literally it. Did he beat Triple H with it at WrestleMania 33? I think he probably did. I don't think he was using the Phoenix Splash yet. Sorry, I'm tired. There's a lot of thinking. I've had a long day. Let me have a drink. much better. But no, eventually, in the end, Cesaro got to do the Cesaro swing, but before that, he did a aeroplane spin, which was like, I can't even explain it. It was an aeroplane spin, but as an accordion rack, and then he just did it with no hands, and he's just spinning with Cesaro, with Rollins on his top, on his shoulders, just spinning. Absolutely amazing, and he did that for ages. He did so many rotations to the point where he just flung him, and Cesaro fell. It was so cool. And then he did the proper swing, and he got to 23 revolutions, spins. He got to 23 spins, whatever you call it. And then he picked him up again, hit the neutralizer again for the 1, 2, 3. A clever finish, because I didn't think Cesaro was going to win, because he'd already hit his finish. If this match had got 5 more minutes, it would have been, I think, like a WrestleMania great match. But because it didn't, and because that time was cut, likely due to the weather, I imagine that the 30 minutes taken off the show probably affected this match and the next match, and perhaps the Braun Strowman match. The 3 middle matches, basically. I think it could have been a really, really great match. It was very, very good. For the 12 minutes they got, it was super. So I'm going to give it 4 stars. It was really, really high quality for the most part. And Cesaro got a massive win. The crowd loved it. The crowd were... This is why this should have been the opening match. Because it was a fast-paced match. You could have probably given it more time in the opener. You could have even taken a few minutes off Lashley and McIntyre, to be honest. 2 or 3 minutes off it would have been fine. And then give it to this one. Give this match a little bit more time to breathe. Because there was no real selling or anything. Well, there's no specific selling. I suppose Rollins worked on Cesaro's shoulder partially. But yeah, I think this could have been a great opener just because it could have been an opener. Big babyface win, big crowd pop, as opposed to what we got. But anyway, that match was very good. This match was better, and it was great. 4 stars. Sorry, that was my phone. 4th match on the show, Raw Tag Team titles. It was, of course, the New Day, Woods, and Kofi Kingston. God, how far Kofi Kingston has fallen. Not that the New Day is a fall or a fall from grace or like being a 24/7 gig. It's not. But he was the WWE champion at Mania 2 years ago, and it feels like it happened in an alternate reality. It never gets brought up. It just doesn't feel like it exists, basically. So the New Day took on Omos, whatever we're calling him, and AJ Styles. This psychology was totally backwards. The psychology was all about the babyfaces fighting AJ 2-on-1, and it was all about Omos essentially getting a hot jag and killing the New Day. That would have been so good, and Omos will be a good babyface eventually, and AJ and Omos could happily turn babyface tomorrow, I think, because nothing they did was cheating. Yeah, they could have honestly just been babyfaces going into this match. But Omos has been a heel for so many months now in the lead up to this. So, but yeah, they both worked over AJ, and then AJ got the hot tag to Omos. He came in. They ran at Omos. I'm going to call him Omos because that's the best one. Omos sounds silly. Omas sounds even worse. I'm going to call him Omos. They ran into him. He blocked them. He gave them running shoulder blocks in the corner, or hip hacks, I guess. And then he killed... AJ killed one of them. I think he did a springboard phenomenal forearm off Omos' shoulders and took out Woods. And then Omos hit a tree slam on Kofi, a really high tree slam, superpower tree slam. And then pinned Kofi with 1 foot, which AJ screamed, "Pin him with 1 foot!" It was funny. The guy never moved. But you can do wrestling without moving. There are bad examples of it, like Giant Gonzalez and Nails and people like Carly, but he's a Hall of Famer. But Omos, I think, was good here. I thought he was alright. I couldn't sit there and say, his wrestling was great, because he did 5 things. But that's the thing. Leave them wanting more. It's fine. This was alright. It was nothing special, really. It was not as good as the opener, really. It certainly wasn't as good as Rollins and Cesaro, but it was good. I'm going to give it 3 stars. I thought that once Omos got in the ring, everyone, I think, loved it. For me, I'm not a massive fan of big guys in wrestling. You know, most of my favourites are little. So, but I thought he was pretty good. I certainly enjoyed him more than I did when Braun Strowman debuted. Like when he debuted back in 2015 on the main roster. So, certainly not as green, but I guess he also didn't do as much. So, yeah, 3 stars. This was alright. 5th match on the show was, speaking of, Braun Strowman and Shane. I would say this was probably the other match that had time cut, but bless it so, because this was really, really, I'm going to try not to swear, really boring. They had a match in a cage, and it was all about Shane escaping, until he then began to go 50-50 with Braun Strowman. I laughed. Inside I laughed. But outside I cried. I'm not a massive Braun Strowman fan, but even I saw the absolute heresy on screen. Yeah, Riker and Elias tacked Braun before the match. This is one of those, again, this is similar to the Rollins match where there's not a lot of story going into it, which for me made the Mania feel a bit lackluster, like a bit less special and a bit less spectacular, because there wasn't a billion people in the stadium and because the storylines weren't that engrossing, except for maybe the main event one and the stuff going on tonight's show with the Reign stuff, because there's a good story going on there, even if it's got some odd chapters. Yeah, this just an odd story, this Braun Strowman match. Braun Strowman has been called a dummy. It's basically bullying, similar to the Nia Jax Alexa Bliss angle. And in a story like this, there's only one way you can end it, and that is by the babyface winning. And that is what happened. It took a long time to get there. This was like 13 minutes, which again, this was another match where I thought you could take like 4 minutes off this and just give it to Rollins and Cesaro. Yeah, they had a match. Shane hit him with a chair. He hit him with a part of the steel cage. Eventually, he climbed all the way out. Shane had Braun Strowman beat. This is actually one of those things I don't like. Shane had Braun Strowman beat in the ring after hitting a coast-to-coast drop stick. I'm tired. He hit a coast-to-coast drop kick. He climbed out all the way over the side to the point where he was probably about 4 or 5 steps from hitting the floor. He could have dropped. He could have easily dropped. And he decides to put his hand in the cage and wave at Braun Strowman. Now, I get it, he's a heel, but his gimmick throughout the rest of the match was about escaping. So, absolute lunacy. But no, Braun Strowman, in the coolest part of the match, I guess, he ripped the cage apart, basically. Again, essentially, the side of the cage was gimmicked, and he ripped it apart and pulled, not like ripped the wall down, but he ripped the actual chain, I guess, away, and pulled Shane back in. And they went up top, and he basically threw Shane off the top, and Shane did a flip bump. The safest flip bump off a cage I've ever seen, I imagine. It was really safe, he landed perfect and all that. And then Braun, just to add insult to injury, he climbed down and he hit him with a running power slam for the 1-2-3, and he said, "This is for all the dummies." No, that was one of the commentators. I think it was Michael Cole who said, "This is for all the dummies out there." What a stupid piece of commentary. This was pretty boring. Even the spot with Shane wasn't that impressive. I've seen him jump off cells in previous years. This cage looked a lot smaller than most of those cells. So, yeah, this match was just pretty boring. I'm going to give it 2 stars. I can't say it was bad. I feel like if I go below 2, that's what I'm saying. It's pretty bad. And it wasn't bad. It was just pretty boring. And it went too long, basically. It went just too long. And then the 6th match on the show. Thank God, we're nearly there. The celebrity match. Now, celebrity matches in previous years, or at least the last decade, have gone a few ways. Stephen Amell, I thought, did really well. You had Snooki, who was there. Pat McAfee. Oh, my Lord, that man's had 2 matches. Super match against Cole and a super match in War Games, which is, it's easy to kind of disguise yourself in War Games, but when I saw that guy in War Games, I thought he was really good, and I didn't think he stuck out. I think Bad Bunny is somewhere in the middle. I don't think he was quite Pat McAfee, but I think he was around about, or just about better than Stephen Amell. He did some stuff in this match, which a lot of it, to be fair, should be credited to Miz and Morrison. They both did really well with him, especially Morrison on the final spot. and Miz, like, Miz helped him do a head scissor and a tornado DDT and a few other things. Morrison helped him do a Canadian Destroyer on the floor, which, again, a lot of the Canadian Destroyer is done by the other person. So, but yeah, he did it. He didn't look out of place. He didn't look too bad, as I said. I thought this is probably one of the better celebrity matches. Damian Priest obviously was there too. I announced that the match was Priest and Bad Bunny against Miz and Morrison, which I didn't know. I thought it was just Bad Bunny against The Miz, so they changed that. But yeah, overall, this was a pretty good little celebrity match. As I've said, most of the stuff that happens, Miz and Morrison basically took control of Bad Bunny. He finally made a hot tag to Damian Priest. Oh, by the way, the best part of the Omos match was with AJ was when Kofi or Woods realised that AJ could make the tag to Omos, because AJ looked at them and then looked at Omos and just leaped and tagged him in. And then it was like, oh dear. It was a good moment. It was the best moment in the match. But no, yeah, it was all about Bad Bunny making the tag to Damian Priest. Damian Priest got in, did a few cool things. He didn't have a finish or anything, really. And then in the end, as I said, Canadian just... Oh, he kicked out of the Skull Crushing finale, though. That's good for him. That's good for him. It's a good job that he kicked out of it, not Bad Bunny, because that gives him some sort of prestige, or at least some sort of iron will. But yeah, no, Bad Bunny hit a Canadian Destroyer on the floor. Never expected that. And then they did a Doomsday Device crossbody with Bad Bunny doing the crossbody to pin The Miz. Of course, to pin The Miz. It's the only way it could end. Celebrities don't really lose in these sorts of matches. And yeah, I thought this was a pretty good little performance from the celebrity. I thought Miz and Morrison... I'm very harsh on The Miz. I think that The Miz is an overrated company man who works a very... works a very boring WWE style. And I've given him a lot of hate for that style. But I thought him and Morrison, who should not be understated, worked very hard to help Bad Bunny. I keep almost cringing when I say it. To help Bad Bunny in this match. And yeah, in the end, the right people won. This feud is over. And I would really like it if Damian Priest could kind of go and do his own thing for a mid-card title or whatever, depending on who was the world title. Maybe he could go for Lashley. You never know. Him or Braun Strowman, I imagine, will go after Lashley. But Damian Priest could easily go after Lashley and then lose. So, yeah, I'm going to give this 3.25 stars. I think this was more enjoyable than... This was also, like, the second longest match on the show. Or third longest, sorry. No, I'm going to say this was more enjoyable than the Omos match. It was a bit less... Nothing going on. There was more going on here. And the actual... absolutely mental. I'm giving more credit to a Miz match than an AJ match. But yeah, I'm going to give it 3.25 stars. I thought this was pretty good. And then the main event. Finally, we got to the main event. The SmackDown Women's title, the first time a singles women's match was main evented at Night of Mania. And it was Bianca Belair against Sasha Banks, the Royal Rumble winner, Bianca Belair. I think the story they've done, these two women, has been really good. And I knew immediately when Bianca won the Rumble that she would be facing Sasha at Mania. It's an easy story to write, and I'm very happy they got the main event spot, and I'm very happy these two women got the time they did. To me, this was the best thing on the show. Bianca Belair had her best night in this company, easily. And I think Sasha Banks had her best match probably for a few years. I know the Bayley series was very good, especially the Hell in a Cell match. I preferred this match to any of those, really. They essentially told a story about Bianca being the more powerful. She military pressed Sasha and walked up the steps. So impressive. You actually don't realise how impressive that is until you try doing it. And I actually will never try doing it, but my lord, like, the strength in that woman, the ability on that woman. Obviously, Sasha Banks did a lot to help her, but super awesome spot there. And then it turned into Sasha abusing... Sasha abusing Bianca with her hair, using her hair in holds and stopping her and yanking her back, and it was so clever. Yanking her into the ring post and using her hair as she locked her in the bank statement, stuff like that. Bianca went for she hit a running shooting star press on Sasha's back. She did the springboard one off the ropes too. She went for 450 and missed. She went for a 450 and missed. Sasha got the knees up and absolutely stuck her knees on poor Bianca Belair. But she's a big girl, she can take it. Just super stuff. Super well impressed by these two women. I know Sasha Banks is experienced, and she really is. Bianca Belair doesn't have Sasha's experience. But Bianca was so impressive here. As I said, her best match in her career. They went down the wire, basically. Bianca finally did get the 450 for a 2 count. I thought that meant that Sasha was going to win. This could have even been the opener, now I think about it. Perhaps it would have worked as an opener, this match, actually. The crowd were actually... This, I think, was one of the matches that were the whitest for, to be honest. They were really hot for this, especially for Bianca Belair, which I was quite surprised at. She has quite an odd gimmick, that she is the best. And that gimmick can sometimes come off as condescending, but I think she's straddling the line quite well, and she's against a natural heel in Sasha Banks. Yeah, they super match, and in the end, Bianca dodged a foot stomp. Sasha went knee first into the bottom turnbuckle after going for knees in the corner. Bianca finally, after all the match, the story was brilliant, after all the match, Sasha using Bianca's hair against her. Bianca finally once hits her with her hair braid. You could hear it. You could see the little scratch on her ribs. She went for the KOD. Sasha countered. I think she hit a knee or something. They traded like transitions. I think Sasha was going for like the bank stamp or bankrupt, which was the neck breaker. Bianca countered it, lifted her up, hit the KOD. 1, 2, 3. And then Cole said that Sasha kicked out. Again, it's just one of those rinky-dink things that the company do every now and then. Sometimes the commentators aren't clued into who wins. No, I thought this was super good. I just wanted to check that I was still recording. Thank God. I thought this was a super good main event. Bianca winning was absolutely the right call. She won the Rumble. She's been booked super well. They've made Bianca feel like a star. And this was the time to put the belt on her. In the main event, the first time, I believe, 2 black people, or coloured people, sorry, have ever main evented a Mania. I can't imagine there's another one. Especially the first time, obviously, 2 ladies have main evented. And I know it's the first night, but I think this is a massive step. And I think, as I said, this could have worked as the opener, but my God, did this work as the main event. That crowd would have gone home so happy after seeing a terrific matchup. I've watched the 2 nights of NXT. This was the 3rd best match I've seen so far. I'm going to give this 4.25 stars. Super main event, super way to win the show. Just like night 1 last year, I end my Mania show on a show where at times it didn't feel immensely spectacular because it didn't feel WrestleMania-y, or the build to stories was a bit rubbish, or the stories themselves were really silly. The main event, just like the Boneyard match did last year in an odd way, 2 completely different matches, this match made me feel like a wrestling fan, because the babyface won, but also the wrestling was good. There were great near falls, and a very good story was told. 4.25 stars, super match. I'm going to try and make my girlfriend watch it. She's a Rhea Ripley fan, so hopefully if the Asuka Rhea Ripley match is good tonight, which I have a feeling it might be one of the best things on the show, if it's given time, like this one was, then that can be a great match. Fingers crossed that that's a great match, because those 2 are great. And I think that the women on both shows could steal the show. Hopefully. So, 4.25 stars, super match. Ending the show, my final grade, I'm going to give it the same grade I gave last year, 7.5 out of 10. You know, you've got the opener, which I had a few questions about, a few things in it I found silly, but it was still pretty good. I don't think it quite lived up to what I wanted, but it was still pretty good. The women's match we're not going to talk about. That was the lowest point on the show by far. Very, very bad for the most part in my eyes. Cesaro and Rollins was very good. It just could have done with a few more minutes. As I said, 4 stars for that one. Almost match, I gave 3 stars. It's really more like a 2 3/4, but I'm going to bump up to 3 because I enjoyed the tree slam so much. And then the Braun Strowman match was very boring. The second lowest point on the show for me. And the Bad Bunny match, a very impressive performance by a celeb. And then the main event, by far the high point. So I'm going to give it 7.5 out of 10. I'm looking forward to tonight's show, perhaps more now, just like I was last year, very much. I am going to have a look at that review that I did last year, and I imagine I end that first night show saying I'm going to look forward to tonight's show so much. But, no, yeah, this has been such an odd review in my eyes because I haven't done this in ages, and I've loved doing this. This is such a passion for me to talk about these things in games, and I'm trying to keep up with doing my blog, which if anyone's keeping up with, that's Gaming During Lockdown, at Blogspot or .blogspot. But yeah, it feels so good to do this again, to talk about really, really good matches. And I'm going to try talk about WrestleMania Night 2 tomorrow. I'm going to try talking about NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver Night 1 and then Night 2 on 2 separate days, because I know those are only 5-match shows, but the main event on Night 2 is a long match, and the Walter match on Night 1 needs to be talked about because it's outstanding. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. I really liked, for the most part, Night 1 of WrestleMania. Thanks for watching. This has been Raw Wrestler. Like, comment, subscribe for more. Tell me your thoughts. What did you think to WrestleMania 37 Night 1? I don't think I've even called it 37 in this review. What did you think to the main event? Do you think Bianca Belair was the right woman to take home the SmackDown Women's title? Which match did you least like? I imagine most people will pick the Women's Turmoil. What did you think to the Strowman match? Am I being too harsh? Am I being too nice? Thanks for watching, guys. I guess this has been Revolver Wrestler.